Welcome back to Breslov Pirkey Avot. It's been a little while. Today we're going to do chapter 1, Mishnah 16. Mishem Hashem, Na'aseh v'natzliach. And the Mishnah states, Rabban Gamliel haya omer, Aseh lecha rav, v'yistalek min ha'safek, v'al tarbe le'aser adamot. Rabban Gamliel used to say, provide yourself with a teacher, free yourself from doubt, and do not tithe excessively by guesswork. Okay, let's see what Breslov Insights have to say about today's Mishnah. Provide yourself with a teacher, free yourself from doubt, and do not tithe excessively by guesswork. Rav Nassan says, a person may think that he is holy enough to receive illumination directly from God and form it into blessing. When the tzaddik does so through his speech, however, this becomes a much easier task, requiring a lesser degree of holiness. Meaning, a person that has better developed their connection, like a tzaddik, somebody who works on himself, his speech is going to be more purified. It's going to be more direct. It's going to kind of get to a straighter, shortcut, high-speed trail up to where it needs to get to. Therefore, we must travel to the tzaddik to hear words directly from his mouth. Then we can receive that light, the light that, to some degree, has already been formed into blessing by the tzaddik's speech. Right? Today we have a beautiful, unbelievable advantage that in the times of the Mishnah and the times of Rav Nassan they didn't have. They used to have to travel like weeks, months to go see their rabbis. Today we can click here, we can click there, and we can get the words of the people that have actually dedicated themselves to trying to formulate speech in a way that's going to connect the speech to the words to the action to God. Right? So this is the meaning of provide yourself with a teacher and free yourself from doubt. As long as the divine light has not been formed, it is a mystery. No one knows about it. It remains beyond our grasp. But through a master teacher, the light is formed into blessing and becomes accessible to us. It's like before something has been created, there's no way to know that it exists, right? I don't know. Once we know that gravity and what it was, well, there's no way to not understand how gravity works, right? But before gravity worked, nobody really understood how it happened. But once that light was brought into the world, then it was no longer difficult to understand that, oh, okay, do you know what I mean? So people that have already done the work to break their heads, to break the roads, to cut the paths, to build the trails, well, walk in their trails and learn from what they've learned. This is why the Mishnah continues. Do not tithe excessively by guesswork. The first tithe, the truma, which is given to the Kohen, has no specific amount. This represents the light before it takes form. The second tithe, which is given to a Levite, is a set amount of 10%, not an estimate. This represents the light as it takes on the form of blessing, right? So there's different types of tithing that we do. Some of those tithing we have exact specific rules, and others, well, it's free and it's open. So don't do too much because you don't know what you're supposed to do, is what he's saying. So find somebody who knows what they're doing, remove your doubt. That way, when you do actions, those actions form, let's call them the vessels that they need to form because they're done in the proper way. The Digest of Commentaries says, the sage quoted here, Rabban Gamliel the elder, was the son of Shimon, the grandson of Hillel. He was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin during the final years before the destruction of the Second Temple, and the first to bear the title Rabban, our master, a designation reserved for heads of the Sanhedrin from the house of Hillel. The commentators point out that the term received the tradition is no longer used here because the disputes among the scholars increased following the days of Shammai and Hillel, to the point that their views seem like two separate Torahs. Therefore, the term received could no longer be applied to a transmission that was less definitive than that of earlier generations. It's an interesting thing. I guess the second that there was a dilution, a disagreement, and there were two schools of thought, well, now we were learning, we weren't receiving. When you receive, I guess the way that it's explaining is when you receive a knowledge, that means that you receive it the same way that it was received before. But the second that knowledge has gone into some sort of split, some sort of I think this way, you think that way, then we actually have to learn and investigate as opposed to receive. At least that's what I'm getting from this. Provide yourself with a teacher. Right? It says, aseh lecha, provide, make. There's an action that you have to do to find the teacher. This does not refer to an ordinary teacher, but to someone who is able to render halachic decisions, which require that Jewish law be derived through reasoning. It is necessary to seek the guidance of such a master teacher in order to free yourself from doubt. This also means you should avoid making halachic decisions based entirely on your own reasoning, right? One of the greatest things is knowing that you don't know and having who to ask so that you do know, right? There are people that you go to talk to when you have doubts about what job to take, when you have doubts about what medicine to give, when you have doubts about what school to go to. But when you have doubts about what to do halachically, well, make yourself a rabbi. When it says make yourself, it doesn't mean, oh, go find a rabbi and go to them. Talk to him. Get to know him. Let him get to know you. Find and see that the way that he speaks, that the way that he looks at things matches the way that you speak and the way that you look at things. And from there, you can get halachic, legal decisions that are made based on A, his Torah, and B, his knowing of you and your situation. So without a doubt, one who merits to find a competent teacher or rabbi is truly free of doubt, for he knows that he can ask his rabbi all sorts of questions, and the answers will take away all of his doubts. It's really interesting here. It says, you can ask all your questions and the answers will work. Throughout my life, I've had the privilege of having luminaries and rabbis that I've gone to through every question. And I've noticed that sometimes I go to a rabbi with a question, and I'm going in with an intention that I'm not necessarily going to listen to what he says. Maybe if I like what he says, then I'm going to do it. It's kind of like going in with my own idea already formulated and looking for some sort of confirmation for my idea. And then I've gone in with the mentality of, well, this is my rabbi. I have chosen to make him my channel to speak with and to remove my doubts. So whatever he says, I'm going to accept. And when I've gone in with that frame of mind, with that sort of surrender to I'm asking and what you say I'll receive, somehow or another the channel becomes so pure and the message is so perfect. But when I go in kind of saying, well, maybe I'm going to listen, I'm just going to, and I don't really go in with the intention of what you say, I trust you enough that I'm going to do, well, then the channeling that they do is also in that same similar kind of fashion. It's kind of there. If you're kind of trusting me, then I'm kind of getting a message. But if you made yourself a rabbi, someone that you trust, that you've invested in, then you can surrender your questions and the answers to that person, and then through that person, a beautiful amount of channeling can happen. And don't tithe excessively by guesswork. Some commentators understand this as a reference to the maaser tithe that applied during the temple period. This amounted to 1/10 of one's produce and differed from the teruma offering given to the Kohanim, which was separated by approximation. Others understand this teaching as indeed referring to the teruma and not the maaser. Another line of interpretation points that Rabban Gamliel's remarks about tithing are in keeping with his earlier admonition not to make halachic rulings by speculation and reasoning, but through rigorous analysis or by consulting with other scholars. So here, I want to bring out a point that it says, here we have three different interpretations of Rabban Gamliel's statement, which shows why it wasn't a received tradition, but rather a learned tradition or just his tradition. Because when something is received like it was in the first Mishnayot of Pirkei Avot, there were no changes, there were no separation of thought. So again, when you do guesswork, when you don't have where to go to, and you're trying to figure things out on your own, which is I think what he's saying, you open yourself up to listen. There's nothing better than knowing that you did what you had to do and you're done. One of the hardest things to do is, I did something, but I'm not sure if I did it right. Did I really get? Then you kind of are halfway in and out because I did it, but I'm not sure. Right? So taking the guesswork out of your actions means that you actually start and stop your actions and know that what you did was the right thing to do. And in order to do that, well, find someone who you're willing to accept what they say, you believe in what they know, you trust what they have to say, and then they become a channel to remove all of the doubt so that you can walk a path of confidence, of peace, and of connection. May we all know that. May we all merit to find someone who we trust, who we can surrender to, who can become our channel. May we become channels for others. And may we merit to see the day that we all get to receive and we all get to know the ultimate truth. Bezrat Hashem. Amen ve'amen.